could mute yourself, because there's a lot of noise in the background and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of us on the call. So if you could mute your, I'm going to unmute everyone, but if you could mute yours on your own, and then when you want to speak, unmute and then speak. We'll also use the chat room to jot down any quick ideas that we have, or things that are going on. This also will be kind of recorded so that you can review this at another time. So just wanted to make sure that folks were aware and familiar with that. And we will, I'll unmute right now. So if you could go ahead and mute your microphone, that would be wonderful. So has everyone located the chat room? So if you look down at the bottom, you should have an option to chat. If you could just type in the chat rooms, just so that I know that you found it. I'm here, or I found it, or something. Is this it? Yeah, good. Hello. All right, wonderful. Found it. Got it. Found it. Yes. Found it. Got it. Yeah, so our system loves hyphenated names. Actually, it doesn't. It was kind of difficult to get people's hyphenated names in the system, because trying to figure out how to do the hyphen. So everybody's got it. Good. To that chat room. So that's wonderful. The first thing I like to do today is take a step back, and what I don't know is a lot about each of you. So I want to spend some time learning some things about you, as well as going through our content. So we'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to share my screen and walk us through the process of the course. And so you'll be somewhat familiar, or have some idea of how the logic of the course works, right? So you've already gone to my website, andrekoen.com. You've clicked on the online courses. You've put in your username and your password. And so that will lead you to something that looks like this. And I'm sharing it, but let me see if I can see it like you see it. So I can't see it like you see it, which is interesting. So let me just let me open up the website. So this is the course. So let's go back to the course. I was in the Zoom part of it. And so I'm the site administrator, so it looks a little bit different for me than it does for you. But for the most part, there are announcements here. There's a Slido poll. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So these are general announcements and things that are going to happen with the class on a regular basis. And as you can see, the Zoom link is right here. So you can go directly to the Zoom link. And then this is the things we covered on Monday are located here. The things that we'll kind of cover today are located here, and things that we'll address on Friday will be here. What I'd like to propose, let me finish this part, and then I'll make my proposal in just a second. So as we go to the next week, we will see the same kind of process. And so what your responsibility will be is to click on a link. Each of those lines is a link. And so your responsibility will be to click on each of those links. So let me go back up to the top, right? And so we talked a little bit about in and out, in-group and out-group stuff. But if I click on this link, it'll open up another window, right? And so this is just a text about what we're going to cover, right? So that was what we covered. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to click over here and go back to the course. And so there, I'm right back where the bulk of the information is, right here. Let me see, let's look at, let's click down here to voice thread reflection. All right, so I'm going to click on the voice thread reflection, and it's going to open up this window. And in this window,
this is Andre.
Yep.
Just wanted to
to check in and make sure folks are feeling pretty good about the class. So for those of you who missed it, just as a recap, we talked a little. So I just paused it so you can see there's my video. And what I'd like for you to do, and we can practice this right now, is to add your own comment to that video section. So if you have your camera up and running, and you're in the course, at some point during our conversation, I'd like for you to go and add your comment. And you do that by hitting this plus. So I'm going to add, no, not that plus. Hold on. I'm going to make this smaller. And so you do that by adding your comment, right? So I just hit the comment button. It's asking me to sign in. I need to sign in. Hopefully you've created a username and password for video thread. If not, feel free to do that. It's an easy process, and it won't take much time at all to do that. So go to it's called voice thread. I'm sorry, not video thread, voice thread. And I'll log in just a second. But let me go back to the course. And we'll see we're right back where we were. So this navigation right here on the side is very, very helpful for you to kind of get through your courses. Yours will look a little bit different because I'm the administrator. Actually, you know what? Let me go into student view. So I'll go into student view just so you can see what it looks like, just like you're a student. That makes the most sense, right? So I'll switch my role and I'll go to student view, which is the view that you have. And so now my things look just like yours, right? So there's the voice thread reflection, and basically you'll just be responding to a question or responding to someone else's question, and you'll hit a plus to add that. I'll walk you through that once we sign into VoiceThread. And then at the bottom is a quiz, and this is just it's a simple multiple choice quiz. You take your first attempt now, so I'll click on that so you can see what that looks like. And there it is, A, B, there are your choices. I'm not sure what's going on with B. I don't see the thing, but that will be a place where you can put your comments, you can add things, and you'll be graded on that as a part of the final course. And so we'll go back to this, and that's okay. And so that follows the very same process, right? So this is the process for going through the course. At the end of the course, there will be there's a certificate here that you will get once you've this is a 3-hour course. So once you've gone through all the material, the lecture, the weekly lecture, looked at the material, you'll get scores on that the system will automatically do. It times how much time you've spent, and it will release that lecture series certificate at the end of the course. And so there are videos that one can watch. Let me see if I can click on a video. That is, oh yeah, so here's one. Are we so different? And this is probably one of the longer videos. It's 57 minutes, but you can watch this right here in the space and not have to go anyplace else. So it's all right here for you. So I'll go right back to the top of the course. And as you can see, we're right back where we started. So all of these things lead right back to this space, and we will we'll proceed with that. So we're going to stop sharing and come back into Zoom because I'm curious if people have questions. So There are a couple of questions that came up in the Zoom. So everyone can, if you like, you can unmute your and we can have some dialogue. Um, so if you don't own a webcam, so this is a question that came up. So I'm going to stop the share. Well, no, I'm going to pause the share. So if you don't have a webcam, you can also use your telephone. You can call in your, can't unmute yourself. So, all right, now try to unmute yourself. So there you go. So if you don't have a webcam, you can call on the telephone. There's a number there. So you hit that plus for voice thread and you can call in. So there is that. Any other questions about the process of the course?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So I watched the video that you had sent out in the email, and I just wasn't 100% sure. For the days that you have things assigned, do you want us to do these things before our session?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So, and also, I did talk with administration, and I recognize you guys are under a lot of stress and strain and have meetings, and so this is supposed to be a value add. So, one thing we may talk about is coming together to either do a reflection or a lecture once a week as opposed to 3 times a week. And so we can talk about what day works best for you all. Administration did suggest that Friday is not a good day at all. So we may be looking at Mondays or Wednesdays for our reflection, which just means that whichever day we choose, the work will either have to be done before or after or continue to the next session. So we'll be mindful of how that works. Did that answer or clear up your question?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
So a question that I have is I have two now.
Okay.
So with the quiz, how many attempts are we allowed for that? Because you said do the first attempt when you were showing us the quiz.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So that the quiz, I don't know if you saw the tag on it. It said your first attempt. So the questions are not tricky or difficult. I think there are. I'll double check, but I think there's probably 2 or 3 attempts for the quiz. There are only 5 questions. So and most of that is opinions of the concepts. So there's that.
And my second question is just a clarification. So you're saying that our lectures, like the meetings, will be limited to 1 day a week, possibly?
Yes, that's what administration has suggested. If I'm willing to do what works for you, but it has been their suggestion that we do a lecture meetings in this space once a week.
And then would those meetings just be longer, like 2 hours instead of an hour?
They could be, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being really flexible. Does everybody hear an echo?
Yeah. When you're talking.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's possibly because someone has the audio coming into their computer instead of headphones.
Or someone's in a cathedral. Someone might be in a cathedral.
So we want to make sure that this is as beneficial to everyone as possible. And Andre's been really great to be really flexible. So I just want to take a really quick poll. Maybe have everyone comment in the chat. Would it be useful to just meet 1 time a week for 1 hour? So just a yes or no on that.
I did hear a voice of someone who said they didn't understand, and so I want to make sure I catch that individual. Who was that, or if you could speak up so we can. Oh, cool. So, how can I help you? You're okay. Yep. So all you're doing is participating for the most part. We didn't any responsibilities in the journal, anything like that. That wasn't so that wasn't the focus. It was really to give you an experience with information in the concepts. No, no. So we can all exhale because I know that sometimes the spaces or the configurations of these things seem more complicated, but it's just another tool to connect as humans, right? So, and given the fact that we're in this new paradigm, and we talked a little bit about paradigm before, and how did we what paradigm the last time we were together? Yep, patterns of behavior. What else? Yes, how we see the world. And I have to tell you that how I see the world right now is very different than how I saw it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, right? And so if we don't adapt and we don't adjust, we become extinct like the dinosaurs. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. Just because we can, we're smart enough to figure this stuff out, and I believe that this type of learning and gathering in electronic spaces will be part of the new normal for many of us. And so I'm glad for those of you who this is a new experience or first time. I'm glad able to share this time and space with you. So, any other questions or comments? Please add them into the chat room so that I can make sure that I capture them and chime in as we move forward through today's lesson. So I'm going to go back to kind of sharing my screen. Oh, go ahead. Someone was going to say something? Yeah, I really appreciate someone uh, just posted that this is about trial and error failure. And one of the things we have at the clinic, so many of you don't so I am the program director for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at Mayo Clinic, and in that role, we I have the responsibility of doing this kind of stuff and working in this kind of space, and so I'm excited to do this with you. But we have something that we talk about failing fast at Mayo Clinic, and so what we spend a lot of time developing networks and relationships that allow people to fail fast. We know that failure is going to happen, but do it quickly and bounce back quickly. And so, fortunately, our to the test right now here in Minnesota. Um, But I want to offer that to you as well. Fail fast. Make those, whatever mistake you're going to make it quickly, learn from it. Too many people in your personal life, you recognize that there are people who hold on to stuff, right? That they've made a mistake or they haven't been their best, and they just beat themselves down with that. Well, what if we get around and we use that to propel us forward, right? So that's my little sermon for today. So I'll go ahead and resume sharing my slides. Now, what I don't know is what you see when I share my slide. Can you see the slide deck? Can you all see it? Oh, it looks like the website. Okay, great, great. So I'm going to shift over to the slide deck. This is a little bit weird because I don't see what you see, but we're gonna keep going. So I'm going to go to the slide deck, which is the lecture deck right here. And view only. So let me hit the, yeah, there we go. Yay. So in our last conversation, we talked a little bit about the in and out group. Go ahead and view only mode. All right. And we talked a little bit about this fit. One not get it. We talked about this, but I didn't get a chance to kind of walk you through it. Was this this diagram right here? So when you look at this particular diagram, you see that there's an A. Now, which out of this A and B diagram? Whoop, going too fast. There we go. Out of the A and B diagram, which do people prefer? The shapes in letter A or E? Like if you had to choose between those two, which do you find appealing? You like B because it looks like fortune cookies? Someone else? Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. So here's the interesting thing about both of those. Most often, particularly when I'm working with scientists or teachers, they will say that A is their preference, but they'll work towards B, right? And so one of the things that we know is that sometimes when we have these double standard bias or this negative part of affinity bias, is that okay? So before I give the punchline of this, right? What is true about the shapes in A that is also true about the shapes in B? They're exactly the same, right? But the way they're positioned appeals to certain people more than it does to other people. And so when we think about this affinity bias, that's what we're really talking about. Sometimes we can have what we call a double standard bias where both things are exactly the same. But because one is familiar to me or friendly to me or easier for me to access, then I say that this is a good one and this one is bad, right? So out of those shapes, which is the right shape and which is the wrong shape? Neither, right? Which is the good shape, which is the bad shape. And so when we look at differences and sometimes even commonalities, we can make judgments and that lead us to wrong endings, right? So they in a positive direction, in the direction of our goals. And then we talk a little bit about this this image where people are standing in front of the this fence. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. You're welcome. Okay. It's going to. It is going to open. So is this still sharing? Yep. It. Yeah. I just. I'm going to cancel the sharing. I'm going to try to. Let me reopen this again and then share this particular screen. I think it's trying to share too many screens. So I'm going to share application window, Chrome tab. You're so very welcome. No, thank you for helping me navigate. Again, I'm flying blind, so to speak. At any rate, so we've all seen this picture, right? Of people standing at the. Has anyone seen this? All right, cool, cool, cool. So, what obviously is the challenge in these pictures? Uh huh. So you're saying it's the little person's problem? I know you're not saying that. I'm just, what so the first time I saw this, I was like, yeah, we need to do these things and make these things happen until I realized something. And what yeah, so we say that sometimes, we're going to treat everybody the same. And that's I don't know that that is necessarily helpful, right? Go ahead. So here, right. So here's the challenge, and a lot of people don't do this, particularly when they're using this um, use this in dialogue, is that it's not the resources that are problematic. It is not the human beings that are problematic. What is problematic are the artificial barriers that we put up. And so I'm not an anarchist, right? So I do believe that there needs to be order, that we need lanes and parking lots and on highways, So I'm not, you know, I'm not, but I do question sometimes what are the purpose of fences that we have in our organizations, right? So the, I have a deep affection for community colleges because it is my belief that the trades, the education that folks get there, oftentimes, and we're going to see it in these days, is more useful and is some of the of academia, right? So getting people with their hands, skills that they can use their minds to apply things, to make real things are important. Which which is why I think like, what SAT? What is ACT? Is it how successful in college? Because there are people who don't take them that are successful. What are some of the benchmarks that we've put in our society actually when we think about it really don't make a whole lot of difference. In this particular time, it's interesting that when we talk societal systemic services, the Walmart employee has been elevated above the NBA. right? So when we think about those things, it really is those bars and those fences. And so sometimes we get into these conversations, and I don't know if you've heard this, but people end up saying goofy things like, we want diverse candidates or the best candidates. What's the problem with that thinking? Abs- right, right, right. So it could be so. However, you're thinking about things will dictate the kinds of things that you're able to do and who you invite to the table. So that was the wrap up of our last conversation. But I want to invite us to have some dialogue around how do you start having conversations about diversity. Um, who are who you think are on your side, who may not necessarily. Um, it is a weird thing, but English is good. So at some um, race, the power of illusion. Has anyone chime in if you've seen one of those 3 episodes? Race, the power of illusion. Has anyone seen any of those? Okay, great, good. Watch this and uh, yeah. So we can think about how many. And if you were to say out loud, how many races do you think there are? Anybody? So there's one race that, um, and we could also say that what might be is more than one. What might be the next ones? Okay, okay. So so I want to challenge how you think about even concept because not thinking rightly about it will keep you confused, which I think part of the thing is to keep people confused and separate. So I'm focusing on that this week, and so we'll talk more about these topics. One thing I did also want to share is that it's important to know, and why is history important to and to absorb or interact with. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are 2 periods of time that I think are important that if we don't understand these rightly, we misunderstand, right? And one is Reconstruction. So we know that the Civil War, and people are, they vacillate as to whether this was actually over slavery or was it over the economic systems that were being disrupted by slavery, right? So was the rights people, or was this an economic um, war on that, on the disruption of that, right? So there's that. Right after the Civil War is the Reconstruction, and things that hopefully you'll see and recognize is how progressive Reconstruction actually was, and hopefully we'll learn from it because what our world is going to look like after COVID-19 is going to be important in how we realign ourselves, right? So there's that, and then civil rights. And typically, people think the civil rights movement is, but it started way beyond that. Some would say that Reconstruction was part of the civil rights, the modern civil rights movement, but the bastion of that, the most of that work happened in the 50s, and we started to see results of that in the 60s, right? So pay attention to those pieces. John Green is a great presenter. He's funny, but he's also serious, and I really his work. And if you're interested in the integration timeline, there's a for that. There's some other things just for background information for you around equity and freedom, justice for all, around Plessy versus Ferguson, which is something that's important to recognize because it was over. Plessy versus Ferguson was the rule separate, was separate and equal was the law of the land, right? So we could be separate and be equal. Is never equal. So, and then the Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, and so now we were able to integrate spaces where before that was the law of the land did not support that. And then some by Kenneth and Amy Clark that were really the bell ringers, bringing clarity around that the separation was hurting folks. And then Anderson Cooper turns around and recognizes that not only does that separation, that segregation hurts black children, which is what Dr. Clark was originally focused on, but actually that the separation hurts white children too. And so when we think about integration, when we think about bringing people together, oftentimes we focus on one group, not recognizing that the other group actually could benefit too. So here's a question for you. Out here. Are there things that white people can learn from Black history? Right. So a lot of times people try to crouch it as this is a great thing that we're doing for Negroes, right? For African Americans, when in fact these are the kinds of things that we should be doing year round. So I have spent some time in Tacoma. My best friend lives there. Wonderful community. There's like a arboretum, zoo, sound, sanctuary. What is that area? Yes. So like we can walk from hills to really love it. But the diversity there is well, it's important as the value of diversity. Diversity looks different in Seattle, but it is certainly there, and more specifically in Tacoma. Actually, a teacher at school psychology. I forgot what school, but at any rate, so there is. People talk about cultural competence, and what would you say is cultural competence? Even if you've not experienced that word, if you two words, what do you think the two words might mean in context? Adequate knowledge of culture. Okay. Very Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Right. So go ahead. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So one thing I I conversation is to really think about this cultural agility. Think about cultural agility, right? So if we do have confidence, if don't I am trying to I have a nail and I want to put it in a piece of wood. Would I grab a wrench to do that? Would I grab a screwdriver to do that, or would I grab a hammer? Obviously, I would grab a hammer, right? Why? Because it's the best tool for the job. It's made to do that. I have to have the agility to not what tool to use, what context do I use, and that is what we call cultural agility, right? And so when I think interacting with cultures, it is not just having the facts, having a checklist or do's or don'ts. Don't don't bow to this person or point at that person. That good thing to have to interact with them or use them or how to use them, then I will use them poorly, which leads us to conversation, which is about culture and context. So culture and context are in relationship to one another. They're in direct relationship. So culture is an adaptation to context. Culture is an adaptation to context. What do we the same or is it constantly moving? Is it evolving, changing? Yeah, it changes, right? So I don't think many of you are old enough to remember the first three times that bell bottoms came through, but so the war bell they were popular, but I'm not wearing them. What's that? So, but I'm not wearing bell bottoms today. Why? Yeah, straight legs, and I'm not wearing those. My wife got me some pants from Old Navy, and I put them on, and they felt like, oh, oh no, I cannot walk that. So I maybe work out a little, get the courage to wear skinny jeans. Um, but as context changes, culture, right? And so if it's really interesting to restaurant, think about ethnic foods and that kind of stuff. The people who are preparing those foods are preparing them out of cultures that they came from. They're preparing them out of geographic regions that they came from, right? So that I'm, Asian cuisine, um, a restaurateur, that I have some relationship with that culture, and so I'm bringing those relationships with. And so culture and context are in relationship. And so as context culture, here's a great example, and I might use it so. Forgive me if I repeat myself. Does anyone know what a Brazil nut is? Okay, they're very good for you, and actually they're not. They smell really good, and they're actually not nuts. They're seeds. I don't know if anybody knew that, right? So they're seeds. I will tell you, older generation did not call them Brazil nuts. They had another word for them. Does anyone ever heard that word? Okay, so someone has heard the word. Okay, right? So for those of you who haven't heard of the word, it is the N-word toes, what older people call them. And I'm not sure how they came up with that term. I know, and I don't know any that look like that. So it's interesting, interesting. But A, lots of people called them that. My family did not, but other people's family obviously did, right? What's that? Why the N-word toes? Well, first, so some people said they know people who taught that. Did those people make that up? No, they did not make it up. Why did they call it that? Because that's what a lot of people were calling it, right? Why don't we call it was the cultural norm? So it could be, what else? Cultural norms have changed, right? Yeah, right. So most of us realize it. Some of us just don't use it because it's not politically correct. Talk about that. So I'm not going to say to say it, but I'm going to say it so I can not get in trouble, right? And so we'll talk about how to help those people change their as well. One thing to also recognize about culturality is that we can't know everything, and we have to just know what tool to use when. There's a couple of videos here on cultural agility that I want you to kind of spend some time with and think about. It looks like one of them might be a dead link, so I'll on that. So this kind of levels of cultural and ways that cultural competence. Let you look at that on time, and we'll kind of talk about that later. I talk about gender pronouns a bit more later in another session, but I wanted to kind of send this tease around gender pronouns. And at the college, have you guys started talking about gender pronouns and the importance of gender pronouns? All right, wonderful. So how at the college are you using gender pronouns? How do they show up, or? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, yay! Well, yeah, yeah. So a lot of folks. So I'm here in the Midwest, and so the clinic is really pressing forward and really trying to wrestle. So the Midwest is not as as progressive as the coasts, right? So we're how to have these conversations, and so I've really had to be strategic about how to have the conversations. And if you don't mind, do you mind if I take the last 10 and just kind of talk about this, and then you give me feedback on if you think my logic is sound on gender pronouns? Is that okay? All right, cool. So the first way that I've been really trying to help people recognize the need to shift gender pronouns is or talk about gender pronouns at least is the relationship between Mr. and Master, right? So does anyone know what MR period is short for? Master, right? So yeah, so a master is a person who is owner, right? Who runs, who's the boss of things, who is over. And if he is not a and he's under 18, he is a Mister, right? Is a young person under 18 that owns stuff. So Mister is short for master. Now here's interesting as well. What is what in old day? How did we address female to a Mrs. and the abbreviation is MRS. Well, when it used to be written out, it was an apostrophe S, which she belonged to him, right? And a woman who did not belong to a man, right? So, if you're trying to catch somebody, someone is a miss. Anyway, that's a little bit of wordplay. But can you imagine talking about people as master? Hello, Master Johnson, Master, right? We would change, and so gender pronouns falls right in line with that. Like, so as English language has changed, we need to change with each other the more we learn. Also, cultures don't have the same genderized identity as so-called Western American names. So lore can be male or female, given what part of the world you come from. And so just to look at a name, it doesn't really give me information on how to address folks. At gender pronouns, that clears up a lot of stuff for me. And then lastly, we know that we're not in a gender binary, right? That we're a spectrum, and so we treat people how they want to be treated, which is the platinum rule, as opposed to the golden rule, which is treat people like you want to be treated, right? But we treat people the way they want to. We get to know how people want to be treated. We have to have, and those relationships are built on dignity and honor, not because, but because you have it to give, right? And so, so for this unit, those are kind of the highlights. There are a couple of videos here that really identify how you can think about gender pronouns and if you could just pay attention to those. There's some other questions, and I'll leave those. Has anyone heard of? Oh, now I'm forgetting his name, and I'm looking right at him. But at any rate, he is an educational philosopher, and he really deals with the development of this Parker Palmer. I'm looking at his book on my shelf. Parker Palmer really talks about trust, and what we recognize about the circle of trust is that you have to give trust, and even if you don't necessarily get it back, right? So you give trust, but that's the only way that you earn trust is to give it, and you do it not through words but through action. And so we'll talk later about what it means to be an ally and why that's impactful. So that is that for that section, and then on Monday we'll kind of regroup and talk about this stuff and do a short lecture on the next week's topics. Any questions, comments, observations? I'm going to stop sharing my so that I can. That's correct. That is correct. Yep. Yep. Thank you for the comments. So so we have about 4 minutes. Folks want comments or thoughts that any aha moments or anything like that in the chat room, that would be very helpful for me as we move forward into the next lesson. So we could take this time, and if people have questions, I'll answer those questions. But we can take those next 4 minutes and just write something in the chat room that you either learned or something that reaffirms something you already knew. That would be great. platinum got a heart. I had no idea that Mr. Master. It was nice to talk about gender pronouns. Yeah, you can. So one question is in voice thread, record a concept you took away from this. Please do. You're so very welcome. All right. If there's no other comments or questions, oh, well, so this is interesting. So someone just commented that they can't imagine what it's like to grow up in a place where you call someone Mister or Mrs. or Master or Miss. Well, I would say, particularly growing up in the South, that was what my grandparents taught my parents, and my parents taught me. And so, and interestingly enough, if you want to do in the United States, I'm teaching my daughter to refer to people that she doesn't know, particularly and Mrs. too, right? So Mrs. Anderson and Mr. So and so. So I think part of it is the recognizing that it's how you do business, right? And so there's that. Hmm. Gender. Yep. Yeah, for me, that is a big relearn because out of respect, those are the two that I go to because that's what's been ingrained in me. I'm trying to figure out how do I show that same respect without either knowing or have the desire to necessarily know. Like, can I still be respectful no matter what? So I'm trying to learn and develop. So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. 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 Yes, friends. Right? Yes, friends. Let's sit down. So, so and here's the other thing, and we're at our time, but I also think that it's important for us to recognize that however we think or we feel about other choices has no bearing on the choices that they make, right? And so when it comes to gender pronouns, I just give people what they want. I give people respect and dignity because they deserve it for being human. Re- Without consequence or without thinking about the consequences to either my belief system or my whatever. So, you know, I want to just we give people what they need, and yeah. So, all right. So thank you so much. We are a minute over. I really enjoyed this time with you. I hope that you find it beneficial as well. If you have any questions, leave me just write in the questions in there. I'm available, and I will see you on Monday. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Bye.